Yeah, there's no doubt about the fact that he can serve bombs, and one of the main reasons for that is that his serve is so technically sound. And I think if I take you inside the point, we'll really have a closer look at what that big battle today is going to be all about. Technically, there's much to admire. Sir Isaac Newton was a big tennis fan. He had a lovely backhand on him there, Brad. And he taught us that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So initially, Kevin pushes down into the court and creates an awful lot of ground reaction force. Then, elastic energy is passed through the major muscle groups into his racket hand. Look at the angle of his shoulders there as well. The greater the angle, the more racket head speed he's able to generate. Remember that ground reaction force? That's what allows him to propel himself up off the court, and he makes contact with the ball over 10 feet off the ground. This allows him to hit the ball hard and flat, directly down into the service box. That's why tall players can serve well. That's why he prefers all four corners of both service boxes rather than having to serve into the body. His average first serve speed in the championship so far, 125 miles an hour. So if you're trying to return it and you're standing on the baseline, you've only got just over half a second in order to react. So Nadal, against big servers, prefers to stand further back, about 7.5 feet behind the baseline. This gives him more time and he can take a larger swing at the ball. The downside to standing further back behind the baseline against a tall, big server is that it'll give Anderson more angle to work with. So I think today there's going to be a happy medium that Nadal needs to find in that regard.
Stop. Rewind. And let's examine what exactly has been said here. 1. Pushing into the court and the reaction force.
And he taught us that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So initially, Kevin pushes down into the court and creates an awful lot of ground reaction force. Then,
the truth of the matter is that at the moment when Kevin is squatting, he is pushing down into the court exactly as much as he is doing it right here. No more and no less. Of course, there are ways to be pushing into the court harder. Doing something like this, or by eating more and putting some meat on his bones. 2. The elastic energy.
Then, elastic energy is passed through the major muscle groups into his racket hand. Look at the angle.
Oh, an old and faithful friend. That imaginary, and yet ever present, the elastic energy. What would we do without it? Since this elastic energy, just like the emperor's new dress, cannot be measured, seen, or felt, I guess we'll just have to take his word for it. And be thankful for those helpful yellow lines, without which we wouldn't even know where to look for it. We also wouldn't have learned that it makes such sharp turns, apparently only to the left and never to the right. But now we know. 3. The angle of the shoulders.
Look at the angle of his shoulders there as well. The greater the angle, the more racket head speed he's able to generate.
Well,
remember,
there might be a different explanation for what this angle is all about. Basically, it is Kevin's attempt to compensate. Kevin, by his lovely buck, as he puts it, has immobilized his torso, and has deprived himself of the ability to power his swing by bending it back and then thrusting it forward. So, as the last resort, he is bending sideways, and to give his racket a much-needed boost, he has to rely on his obliques and then the muscles of his shoulder, making this whole procedure a hell of a lot more complicated than it ever needs to be. 4. Jumping up.
remember that ground reaction force? That's what allows him to propel himself up off the court, and he makes contact with the ball over 10 feet off the ground. This allows him to hit the ball hard and flat, directly down into the service box. That's why tall players can serve.
By jumping up, Kevin can create only an upward movement. Then what creates the horizontal vector of the racket, you might ask? His swinging arm, of course. So, what is the purpose of all that jumping? It is to raise the point of contact as high as possible, as they claim. Of course, that wouldn't be such a bad idea. If only he could be sure that each of his jumps would be identical in height. But since no one in his right mind can guarantee such a precision, trying to deliver the ball from an ever-changing height doesn't seem like a good recipe for consistency or reliability.
Jason's discussion of all the biomechanics of the beautiful serve and ground strokes. Can Anderson's mind not get in the way of that? Can he play this like it's not a Grand Slam or not a final and play his best?
Maybe we should find Sir Isaac Newton to see what he has to say about the legs and nerves, because that is going to be the key thing, how he handles it, not having been there before. And, of course, it's true that Nadal's going to try to find that right area to return serve, and his serve is big. But when those nerves are getting in the way, you know, those legs get a whole lot heavier, and you don't spring off the ground as easily as you do when you're in the second or third round match. So those legs get a whole lot heavier, and you don't spring off the ground as easily as you do when you're in the second or third round match. So those legs get a whole lot heavier, and you don't spring off the ground as easily as you do when you're in the second or third round match. So, of course, early.
5. The speed of the serve.
So there's two ways of dealing with somebody who hits the ball really hard, dealing with pace. Most people think that the harder the ball comes, the harder I have to work. Couldn't be more untrue. When a ball's actually hit with no pace, that's when you need to work hard. You need to work hard with your legs, you need to move your feet, you need to put more energy behind the ball. You can even take a bigger backswing to generate a longer swing. But when the ball's hit with pace, you don't need to do that. All you need to do is keep a solid base, do small backswing, small follow through, racket face towards your target, use the pace. You'll be amazed on how easy it is to hit that shot.
His average first serve speed in the championship so far, 125 miles an hour. So if you're trying to return it and you're standing on the baseline, you've only got just over half a second in order to react. So Nadal.
So, and what have we got in the end? Rafael has dispatched Kevin, together with his serve, in 3 easy sets, serving himself at around 100 miles per hour. Go figure.
So, Brad, there's no
Well
doubt
done,
in my
Professor,
mind.
on
I'm
that.
not done yet. There's no doubt in my mind that that's going to be the biggest battle within the overall war, and the winner of it will win the tournament. What about you?
Yeah, I mean,
All in all, it would be better if a game analysis, such as this one, were X-rated, because the kids could be watching. And, if some of them are paying any attention and take it all to heart, this might have a long-lasting effect on their mental well-being. As for the Honorable Sir Isaac Newton, he is probably spinning in his grave every time this segment is aired.